Okay. Episode 2. It's been like 8 months since we recorded last and 5 since I posted. We apologize, don't kill us.
It does say when we feel like it.
Exactly. I added it in for that exact reason when I was updating the card thing.
Alright.
1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's get started. Episode 2. So, in the 8 months since we last recorded, I was thinking about how we want this setting to go, and I'm thinking, like, it should be like an all-purpose fantasy setting. You can use it for a book or a game or an RPG, so, like, it's as omni-useful as possible so we can introduce as many relevant concepts as we want.
Exactly. It's just basically world building,
Yeah.
which can be applied to like any medium basically.
Yeah.
Any work of fiction.
So,
Today's topic.
since this is supposed to be a fantasy setting, what's something no work of fantasy is complete without?
M
A.
G
Wait. Let's do it like a cheerleader type thing. Give me an M, give me an A, give me a G, give me an I, give me a C, maybe a K, depending on how you want to spell it.
Putting the K is just weird. I mean,
Yeah.
just spell it normally. Come on,
Yeah.
guys. It's not that cool. But I'm pretty sure it goes give me an M, give me an A, give me a G, I, C. Like that.
Yeah. Give me an M, give me an A, give me a G, I, C. Drum roll, please. Magic!
So, starting off with thematic
Yeah, like,
indulgences.
exactly. So, like, if you're putting magic into a story, it should serve the story well, like a sword and sorcery type, like hack and slash type game project or RPG. It's not going to need a hyper complicated system of like complex, super long rituals to cast simple spells, or something overly convoluted like eating certain types of metal or something. Okay, sorry, Brandon Sanderson, but like, we needed a victim here.
I mean, if the story's simple, then the magic should be simple as well.
Like-
If you've got a complicated story, then complicated magic might suit it, but you can interchange it. I mean, sometimes a simple story goes good with some complex magic because that makes the story more interesting, and sometimes it's the other way around. It just depends on what you feel like, I guess.
Like,
What do you think serves the story the most?
yeah, it depends on the story. Like, The Lord of the Rings wasn't focused on the magic system because the magic was mostly there for spectacle, and the most they go into it is in, like, the Silmarillion with the creation of the rings and stuff.
But the Silmarillion's not really as much of a
Story.
novel. Yeah,
It's not as much of a story as it is a lore Bible.
exactly. And if you want to make a lore Bible, then go ahead.
Yeah,
But,
like,
you know, it's for whatever purpose you have. I think the magic system, just make sure what theme you're writing to, it fits. If your story's about magic, you're going to want an interesting magic system. If your story's about something else but includes magic in some way, then magic should serve as more of a backdrop for your story to go upon.
like, going off of that, how detailed your magic system is. So, within the writing and world building jargon, things are referred to as hard and soft. Hard being like hyper detailed, quote unquote realistic,
Fleshed out, basically, so
Like,
you understand the system.
almost scientific. Whereas soft is more like fast and loose, it's whatever you need it to be. It really depends on the story, like, and it's not like a hard dichotomy either, it's like a spectrum.
Yeah, and hard and soft both have their own benefits. Hard makes it a little bit more immersive, and you feel like this is really like a world that happened. And soft is more kind of whimsical, and you don't really understand it, but it kind of gives you this immersion in the sense of you don't understand it, it's just wonder. And I think both have their pros and cons, but it's definitely not very good to use like a soft magic system in an environment where you need to rely on very strict magic rules, like let's say D&D. It would be very, very difficult to pull off a soft magic system in some cases.
Yeah.
Because you need a set way to use magic as a player in the game.
And like you need those mechanics for any RPG. So you have a concrete set of rules for casting, what it does to your stats, what stats you need to do it, spell effects, spells, character classes, which ones can cast spells, etc.
But one way that you can use soft magic in a setting like that is more of the setting rather than the magical mechanics. Soft sort of world building is still completely usable in those kind of settings. It's just basically a world that's more whimsical. There's less of an explanation. You don't have like the physics down. It's just kind of what comes to mind and what seems to fit. But either one of them can be used for whether it's a either way can be used for a game or for a novel or for whatever, just world building for fun. It doesn't necessarily like have a preference, but there are ways that are easier for certain applications.
Yeah. Like, actually, if you're writing a story, if you're using it in some kind of work of literature or like a film or something, a really good idea is to like set up all the rules and stuff, but never outright say them. Hint towards them. Use them. But unless they're plot relevant, don't like info dump them.
It's just kind of a matter of subtextual presentation, basically.
Yeah, like, and plus the feeling of mystery and like there's something deeper underneath will leave whatever audience you're catering towards wanting more.
And if you imply instead of outright say something, then it leaves a little bit more room for interpretation. Not that even if your goal is not interpretation or to make an ambiguous sort of magic system, it's still interesting when people can come to their own conclusions about, you know, maybe not the mechanics of your magic system, but maybe the implications of it.
Yeah. Like, the implications of different magic systems are really interesting to look at. Because, like, say there's some really esoteric use that never gets touched upon. How could you use that in a different scenario? What could it be used for better or for worse? Like, say there's a character who can, like, manipulate plants or something. Hypothetically, they could cure world hunger. Also, hypothetically, they could breed hyper-poisonous plants and use them to, like, torture people. So, like, it goes both ways.
But one thing you want to make sure, especially when you're doing hard world building and hard magic, is to stay consistent. And I think the thing also applies to soft world building, because even though nothing is necessarily explained, and even you as the creator of this magic system might not even fully understand it yourself, you have to make sure that what you're doing makes sense within the nonsense.
Yeah, like, I think one of the worst offenders of tonal inconsistency like that is, so, over this summer, I ended up, out of pure happenstance, rewatching the whole of the Naruto anime. So, I'd say it's fairly good in terms of world building. It's pretty consistent, up until the very end, when out of nowhere, it's revealed that the quote-unquote magic system is in fact based on an ancient alien encounter.
You just don't want... You want things to make sense, even if the point is to go for kind of nonsense. You want things... I guess the best word, instead of making sense, is consistency. In soft world building or hard world building, there's different levels of consistency, but you still want to maintain a level of consistency that makes it maybe not predictable, but sort of understandable and reasonable.
So, now that we've done enough waxing lyrical about thematic and literary implications and how hard or soft we should make a magic system, let's develop our own. How is magic used on this island of Runakuna? I think we should go for a harder system here so we can, like, flesh it out, develop it more, explore the implications of stuff.
A harder magic system is definitely easier for this as like a case study, I would say, because a softer magic system there's less of a hard set of rules, so there's less of an understanding of how you got to that conclusion.
Yeah, like a softer magic system works better in practice. Like,
but it's not good as a case study because
Yeah.
it doesn't really provide any meaningful insights into the magic making process. That's it.
yeah, like the magic in Harry Potter works because it gives this sense of wonder and whimsy and ambiguity, but as a world building case study, I would not recommend Harry Potter as a world building case study.
And the reason why is because there's not really much structure to go off of. And if you're trying to make a structureless magic system like Harry Potter, let's say, then that's fine. But in this case, it's easier to flesh out the process of making a magic system with a structured magic system.
Yeah. Also, there's a magic school which has to cater to 3 billion people in 2 countries that hate each other's guts.
Which is a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, it's like a school for all of India and China. That's 3 billion people.
Seems completely normal and logical to me.
And also, these are 2 countries which are like skirmishing at their borders and stuff.
They're like strange frenemies.
Yeah.
It's kind of odd. All right, so let's start thinking of a magic system. So generally, in a hard magic system, one good thing to consider is the source of the magic. Like, where is the magic coming from? Where is it being drawn from? Pulled from? Where is it being, where is it being sourced from?
Yeah. I think, like, we've already done a setting where magic is like a manipulation of outside forces, so let's try something different. I already mentioned how over the summer I rewatched the entirety of Naruto. It has an interesting quasi-magic system. A lot of anime have a similar system where it's like, you're not manipulating something from outside, but an energy
Inside,
that
yeah.
exists within you.
Exactly, yeah.
Like Naruto, for example, its system of ninjutsu is founded off of something called chakra, which is sourced from that alien encounter I was talking about earlier. Long story, it kind of jumped the shark there. But basically, characters in that verse have a physical energy that exists in their bodies, and also a spiritual energy, both of which can be intensified through, like, training and honing your body and mind.
So
And-
for this, let's go for sort of like a soul magic kind of.
Yeah, like, those 2 elements are infused to allow for its manipulation, and a system like that I like because it also provides like a hard limit on how much you can do. Like, eventually you run out.
You burn yourself out.
And
so
you-
you're the own source.
Yeah.
And in this kind of a system, you're what's at risk when you're using the magic. So it's less of, like a clerical person that's like getting power from a god, and it's more of you getting power from yourself. And a lot of the times, especially in like when you're making like a story, that could be interesting of your character not knowing their limits and ending up damaging themselves while using this magic.
So, to start with, how does the energy in our system work? Maybe it's like some kind of... let's think about this. Life, maybe just the biological processes of being alive, produce this kind of spiritual energy as a byproduct.
I see what you mean, yeah.
And it also goes back into the system and kind of fuels you spiritually. Let's say in this setting, like, the mind and body are 2 separate things that are only somewhat intertwined with each other. Like, there's a body and soul. So, like, it's kind of a feedback loop. The processes occurring in your body produce this energy, which is then taken in by your soul and, like, kind of like the physical versus spiritual energy thing I was saying before.
So this is kind of like almost a version of photosynthesis, right? Plants are making oxygen, right? We consume the oxygen and we create carbon dioxide as a byproduct, right? Plants consume the carbon dioxide. It's sort of like that, I guess. That's what you're getting at.
Yeah, and maybe, like, training your body along with your mind is important here because, like, it means your body has more energy, like, it can produce more, it can take more. It becomes stronger and, like, a better energy producer.
So now that we have that laid out, now we need to come up with the name, or we can also come up with like units. In some hard world building magic cases, there are like units of magic, like
The thumb in Discworld.
midichlorians.
Midichlorians are a terrible. Like, that's not how midichlorians work.
Either way, there's a number, right?
Yeah, like
The point is that let's come up with. Do you want to make it something more ambiguous in it's like a force kind of thing, or do you want it to be, you know, a completely structured unit of magic?
Like, in Discworld, you have the thumb. I highly recommend Discworld, by the way, as a case study of fantasy worlds. It does like to keep a lot of stuff ambiguous, but that's because it's meant to be more, like, comedic and satirical.
Yeah. But let's first think of actually a name for the magic system.
I mean,
I think we should decide first if we're using sort of units or sort of like an energy that's like, you know, uncountable, innumerable. It's just sort of.
I think Discworld gets around this with a unit called the thumb. It's like, it's not measured by how much it is, but like the effect that it creates. Like, if I remember correctly, it's like how much energy you need to like conjure up a single white mouse or something.
Okay. So you want to do something like that? How much of our energy do you need to do what? What kind of... Well, I think that's kind of a difficult question to ask at this point because we haven't yet decided what the magic even does.
Yeah. So, like, since it's coming from your body, maybe you can, like, push it into other objects to manipulate them. Or, like, straight up bring it out and use it as an energy-based thing. Like, there are a lot of possibilities for this.
Something like telekinesis, right?
Or
That's pretty viable, I think.
I think we could have some, like, elementals type stuff and also telekinetic type stuff. Like, it's basically the same thing. You're pouring your energy into something else to give you, like, indirect or direct control over it.
Okay, so let's consider you can move objects with this system, right?
Yeah.
So let's say as a base, let's consider one unit of this magic to be enough to lift something that's one kilogram, 1 inch off the ground. So how much would that unit of force be?
Like, it depends on who's doing it. Like, let's say your average Joe, like, if they haven't trained for it, then they'll probably have, like, what they need to stay alive, plus maybe, like, half that as surplus.
True,
And then the
yeah.
surplus increases the more you, like,
Train it.
train in it. Like, train your body, train
I
your
think
mind.
it's kind of like training yourself to retain the surplus, because I would assume that in an average person that hasn't figured out how to harness their magic, the surplus is just kind of relinquished in some way.
Yeah.
So let's go back to what we were saying. Maybe let's do 1 pound, something to lift 1 pound, 1 inch.
I thought you said 1 kilogram.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. It really does not matter.
Metric system moment.
Okay. Yeah, what do you think? What do you want to call the unit? Now this is just the part of the thing where we try to come up with a name that doesn't sound terrible and is not used by every single other thing, you know. A name that we will take from something around us. So in our room, I see bug spray.
A water bottle for dogs. A fake license plate with my sister's name on it. The packaging for an Xbox-shaped mini fridge.
Xbox-shaped mini fridge.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Oh, that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
You gotta do napkins backwards. Snip gun. Snipkan. Or no, it's Snickpan.
Maybe we should establish a conlang before we start naming things. So these are just placeholders.
Yeah, obviously. Conlang can be another episode, but for now, let's just call it. How about? I don't know. Well, what do you think?
Let's see. Spell tissue backwards. Change up the letters a bit. Maybe you get Esuit.
Esuit. Okay, yeah, let's do S1 Esuit. I
Yeah.
feel like it's a little hard on the tongue though. This is kind of the process. You just kind of shoot out random names until you
Yeah.
get something that's satisfying to the ear. Let's keep looking around.
Maybe something about like how the energy is produced.
Okay, how is it produced? Let's get to that.
Like it's a byproduct of biological processes and stuff. So maybe say something like medical.
Medical. Spine backwards.
Spine backwards. Enips.
Enips. One enip.
Yeah, one or like put an accent on the I, so it's like enip.
You can do however. I think with the E accent it sounds better. Enip, right? Enip is kind of like I have a lot of enips, enips, enips. Either way, it doesn't matter. That's more of the language making process,
so
which we'll get
it
into
takes
another
one
episode.
enip to move something 1 pound 1 inch.
1 inch in any direction. So a 1 pound object will require 1 enip to move in any direction 1 inch.
And let's see. So let's say the average person has like 2,500 enips.
That's a lot. That's an average person.
Like
That means you could move a 25,000 or 2,500 pound object.
or like most of it is just for keeping you alive.
Okay, I see what you mean.
So like maybe
Oh, okay, wait. So let's consider how much is the average kind of being weigh in this world?
I mean it's a human. Let's say it's
Like 160 pounds relative. We haven't made up. Ooh, actually, do you want to make up a weight measurement kind of thing, or do you want to just say it relative to pounds for now, since we're making magic?
yeah, relative to pounds. We can flesh out units and languages and names and stuff once we've got like concrete maps and cultures.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say you want to go with like 160 pounds.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty baseline weight. So we have that means you would require 160 enips at minimum just to literally remain seated, right?
Or maybe it's not so much like moving yourself as it is keeping your organs.
Yeah, I mean
Going?
that's kind of what I mean.
So like, yeah, let's say 200 enips.
Your
like,
weight is required. Your weight in enips is required to keep your body functioning at all. Not considering like doing anything, chewing food, right?
Yeah, like, so let's say baseline for like someone weighing 160 pounds would be like 200. Like 160 to keep living plus some extra.
I think you could just multiply by 2.
So 160.
Your
that's-
weight to keep it
320.
running, and double your weight to keep your body running and to have movement and stuff. Food, that would mean food contains enips, no? Or at least food is kind of like a precursor that causes a reaction in your body to create
Yeah.
enips.
Also, like, unless you're some weirdo who like swallows rocks or something like my dog, then you're probably eating something that is or was alive.
Exactly. So would we say that enips are consumed in this case, or that things
Like-
are consumed that cause you to produce enips?
I think the latter.
Okay. So when you consume like dead matter, right?
Yeah, like organic compounds.
Then it contains what that will be a precursor to enips.
Just generally the energy being broken down.
So is it just like dispelled enips?
Like, I think it's more the energy dissipates when the creature dies, but it's the process of breaking down the organic compounds and stuff within them that makes you produce it.
Okay, so organic compounds keep you alive, and being alive makes you produce anims.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty similar to real life already.
Yeah, so like, how are they used now? Like, not just combat, but like the basic foundations of stuff.
Well, now that we have this force that is more of just a movement tool, right? It just moves things, right? You
Or
don't really
like-
conjure anything with this force. It's more of a force of
It's more fuel that you use to
exactly
make
yeah.
different effects and stuff.
So let's go back to what we had with to move 1 pound 1 inch, right? So if your body naturally produces, on average, like an average person that has not harnessed this magic produces twice their body weight in enips a day, right? Within
Or
a
like,
day.
that's just the baseline amount you have at any given time.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that's just enough to live without even using any magical properties or anything. And then a trained magic user would be able to kind of retain this sort of surplus and sort of
Use it and
encourage
also
a surplus to materialize.
like use the surplus as fuel to make things happen.
Exactly.
And also maybe recover faster, generate more.
Just general magical effects.
Yeah.
So now that we have the fuel of our magic, we have to start considering, the symptoms. What
Yeah,
does this magic
like-
do? So we have one idea fleshed out already, which is sort of like a telekinetic movement thing. You exert the force through your body, and it will move things. So you don't necessarily push something with your hand. You exert maybe the force out of your hand, and it pushes something. This is something actually we need to consider before. How is the force exerted? How do you exert enips, other than keeping your bodily functions running and like moving in general?
So, like, maybe, like, you take that surplus and you can send it out.
Would you like, we could consider it in a way of like humans are covered in pores, right?
Ah, I see you're going the Hunter x Hunter route here. Is that how you pronounce it? Please tell me.
I don't even know. Is that how it was? Is that how they do it there?
Yeah, like
It comes out of your pores.
yeah, like it comes out of your pores. The first thing you learn is how to keep it in so you don't die, and then you can get to like masking it or energizing body
Ooh,
parts.
wait,
and
I
stuff.
see what you mean. So like
Yeah.
the force doesn't just escape from you. Well, we can go that route, or we can think of something a little more original too.
I feel like originality isn't just coming up with original ideas.
That's
it's taking
true.
stuff that's already there and like putting it in an
that
original
wasn't my
way.
point. I'm just saying, like, thinking
Yeah.
of another way. Maybe that's not as baseline as that. It could be that when you learn to like, or when you enter like a magic academy or whatever.
Maybe it's the reverse where usually your body keeps it in, but the first thing you learn to do is release it.
Or another way we can look at it is when you start learning magic, then the first thing you do is undergo some sort of bodily modification that allows you to exert it. So normally your body will naturally want to keep all of this in, right? So it can use it to maintain your biological functions, right? But then the point of using magic as an external force is to learn how to both exert it and to create a surplus of it. So it would be kind of an interesting concept if magic users,
Or maybe it's like
when they're undergoing the process of becoming a magic user, then one thing they do is undergo some sort of bodily transformation that will allow them to exert this surplus of enips that they've developed.
Or maybe it's something your body can do, but not consciously. So the first thing you learn to do is like figure out how to consciously release energy from your body.
I think any of these methods work. What do you want to go with?
I think my mental block idea is pretty good.
Okay, so let's go with that.
So the first thing you learn to do is like consciously
Overcome
exert it.
your mind.
Yeah. You figure out how to consciously exert it from your body. Maybe like,
How is it exerted? Just through your pores or anything else?
or like since it's more of like an ethereal energy type thing, we can be a bit more fast and loose with how it's released.
Okay, so how do we want to do it? Maybe we could say it's sort of almost like not necessarily a gaseous form, but it's something that kind of
It's kind of fluid.
it precedes any physical boundaries, I'd say.
Yeah.
So you could literally just exert it by it passing through you, not through any specific gateway, but it literally is just all you
then-
have to do is focus what it goes through
Yeah.
and what it doesn't go through.
And then it takes effort to realize it.
Exactly. Okay. So let's go with this sort of system like that. Basically, to sum it up, you have to undergo this sort of almost like an epiphany of how to let this energy exit your body.
Yeah. Maybe it requires like a lot of meditation and stuff to like hone your mind so you
Exactly,
can consciously
yeah.
overcome these blocks.
Just general mental training. And I think one thing you'd have to learn before how to release energy is how to build up a surplus. Because if you start releasing energy, then you're gonna start like starving and dying, and your liver's gonna stop working.
Yeah, like you have to learn how to keep some in and let some out.
So the first thing you need to do is learn how to build up a surplus of this base number of double your weight, right?
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to use less and retain more.
Maybe that's part of what the meditation method does, where like you're meditating, it focuses your mind and you can focus yourself on like actively producing more energy.
And when you're in a meditative state, then you're using less NEPs too, because you're not running around or you're not doing anything very active. So that'll excuse me. That allows you to build up the energy because you're not using it and you're focusing on keeping it.
Yeah.
So let's think biologically. How are NEPs? Is it just sort of like this ethereal force that just is anywhere in your body, or are there specific like organs that are responsible for producing and retaining surplus and exerting NEPs?
Maybe it like kind of flows throughout your body, kind of like a circulatory or nervous type thing. There's like a center and there are specific points, like crossroads, where it flows through, kind of like acupuncture.
Okay, so when you gain a surplus of this energy, does the center of the energy within you just expand, or is it just there's a higher density of energy?
Yeah, it's a higher concentration of stuff in general.
Okay.
And maybe it's flowing more like vigorously. And maybe like if you were a trained doctor or something and knew where these points were, you could like cancel them out.
What do you mean by cancel them out?
Like you could target those specific points and like make them stop flowing. Maybe like
I see what you mean. Stop the flow of energy to your
maybe
hand or
like
something.
insert your own energy in there, or like
a blood
Phys-
transfusion.
like maybe insert your own energy and there is a block, or like physically make it stop. Maybe that evolves into kind of like a martial art where people learn how to hit specific points to make you stop working. I think this is a concept I've also seen in some other works. Like,
Are you also trying to imply like you can focus the NEPs in one area of your body to have that area of your body with the most force, sort of?
yeah, you could do that. Like maybe
Like concentrate them all on your fist when you're about to punch somebody.
yeah, concentrate it all in your fist. You can like punch through a wall, or concentrate it all into your legs. You can leap tall buildings in a single bound. Concentrate it all in your eyes. Maybe it lets you like see the flow of other people's energy, or just have generally better vision,
But what
reaction time.
Okay, so these are all sort of internal effects. When you're concentrating your energy, or your NEPs, I should say, in a different location than just evenly spread throughout your body, what are the consequences of that? That are, like, what are the negative consequences of that?
If you've built up enough surplus, then the rest of your body should be fine.
But if you haven't,
If you start like funneling the baseline of what you need to live, then like maybe
your
the rest
leg's
of your
gonna, like, die.
no, like maybe the rest of your body gets like weaker. Maybe like your heart won't beat as hard, or you won't be able to digest food that much in that time, so maybe it makes you queasy, like your legs get weak. Wait, that's just seasickness.
Yeah, you get seasick.
Or maybe if you're concentrating it all to your eyes, then maybe the rest of your senses
You can't
are
taste.
the rest of your senses are kind of dulled, like your hearing becomes muffled.
That's interesting, and I think that would be more of like a case by case thing, where an individual uses the magic in a certain way, and that's how they would experience it, and you would observe that in a more, as I said, a case by case kind of thing, more anecdotal, where well, let's say you're writing a story or you're making this for like a D&D world or whatever, like a certain character or being or whatever uses magic in a certain way, then in that case it's not necessarily soft world building to have different effects for different people.
Yeah. Wait, maybe like you can have a halo of energy around a physical attack to like create an effect around it. Like
an area of effect kind of thing.
Like maybe you have a halo around your arm that turns it into like a blade or something. Maybe you can control what it passes through, so like you can sever nerve connections or break bones without breaking the skin. Like you just karate chop someone and suddenly their arm goes numb.
That's actually really interesting, and I think that would definitely be used by someone of higher magic, but we need to get back into the process of obtaining this magic. So first you learn how to build up a surplus through meditation, right?
Then you learn how to release it. Maybe you can make it like change form or like affect the stuff around it.
It's a formless force.
Yeah,
I would
so
say.
you would have to concentrate to make it like affect anything.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense, yeah. So
Maybe a basic technique is like it either just becomes tangible or affects the air around it and like it becomes a shockwave.
biologically speaking, what specifically do enips do to keep you alive? Like, is it just a form of energy, right?
Yeah, like I feel like it cycles more into like the spiritual part of you, like your soul.
Okay. Alright, that makes more sense. Okay, so now we have, again, we have a unit for the magic, right? We've come up with a name for the magic. We've come up with how to learn how to harness it, how it's harnessed. Now we need to consider the symptoms. What you can do with this magic, and we've already considered some. Like you said, you can make it an extension of yourself, like a halo. You can choose what it passes through and what it doesn't. But there are more things that we have to consider with external implications, right? You would say, like, does it take a physical form when you're exerting it? Like, does it become a solid or a liquid or a gas?
Like,
Or is it its own state of matter?
I think it's kind of its own state of matter, but you can focus it so that, like, depending on how much you focus, it acts like a solid or a liquid or a gas.
So it's its own independent source or type of matter that can be utilized and can interact with other states of matter.
Or maybe once you get to higher and higher levels of like skill, you can like change its form. Maybe use it to heat up the surrounding air and create fire.
That's interesting, yeah. So it's just it's its own state of matter that can interact with other states of matter when used correctly, when harnessed correctly.
Yeah. Or like maybe you could use it to make like ethereal forces or walls.
Yeah. So I think there's not much else to flesh out at this point except for specifics. I would say like how your world views magic, how common magic is in your world, whether it's viewed as like a positive thing or a negative thing, how many people know it, how do people learn it, are there academies, do you have to take on like a mentor as an apprentice? There's many other things that you can consider in this
And
case.
I think there are a lot more specific effects and applications that we could get into. We might make a part 2.
We might make a part 2 to this, and I think our we have a couple of other episode ideas, like making the conlang, making just general kind of world knowledge, right? Like units, like how you weigh things,
Yeah,
how
like
you measure
I think
things.
that should come after like the languages and the specific cultures.
Yeah, definitely.
I've yet to make like concrete maps for this island or like fully flesh out its fauna. Cause like remember, we established last episode that most of the large animals here are like derived from birds. So that gives a pretty unique assemblage of animals for us to work with.
Yeah. So that'll all be explored in future episodes, and we'll have definitely more visuals and maps and stuff rather than just the screen. Although it is a good screen to look at.
Yeah.
But in general, that's the gist of making a magic system, and we've kind of taken you through the process of making it. At first, you kind of think of what form does the magic take in, all of these things, and whether your world is hard or soft, generally in a fantasy setting, or even not in a fantasy setting, in any like fictional setting, magic can work to some degree or to any degree. You just have to make sure it's consistent with your world.
Yeah.
All right, and I think, is that it?
Yeah, that's about it.
All right, we'll leave it off with that. A little bit of music, maybe.
Yeah, like some end credits. I'll put those in post.
Okay. All right, and that's it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.